class, we are looking at Chapter 1, Lesson 3, Multiplying and Dividing Integers. And remember, an integer is any number that is positive or negative, including 0. So first off, what is a product? The product of two numbers is another word for multiplying or multiplication. Okay, so we're going to do product is, I guess it helps if I'm on a pen. Product is multiplying. Okay, so it could be the actual times. It could be a number in parentheses next to another number. It could be a number beside a number in parentheses. Okay, so sometimes they have it where there was a dot between the two. But for the most part, it's just going to be where it is two numbers right beside each other. Okay, so product is multiplying. Find the product of these two numbers means multiply them together. So if we have 3 times 2, that means there are 3 groups of 2. If we have 3 times negative 2, it means there's 3 groups of negative 2. So let's do our example. 3 groups of 2. 2 times 2 times 2. 3 groups of negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. Or think of it as like here's a group, here's a group, here's a group. So then we have one group of negative 2. So I just made it look like a 3. Plus another group of negative 2. So now we have negative 4 plus another group of negative 2 equals negative 6. If we have negative 3 times 2, it means the opposite of 3 groups of 2. The opposite of 3 groups of 2. So in that respect, it's 3 times 2 is 6. The opposite of 6 is negative 6. And the last one we have, if we have negative 3 times negative 2, it's the opposite of 3 groups of negative 2. So if we have the 3 groups of negative 2, up here we decided that that equaled 6, negative 6. And so if we know that that's negative 6, the opposite of negative 6 is going to be a positive 6. That didn't work so well. Okay, so multiplying integers. So if we have 2 integers with the same sign as positive, then it equals a positive. So a positive times a positive is going to equal a positive. If we have a positive times a negative, it's going to equal a negative. If we have a negative times a negative, it's going to equal a positive. And if we have a negative times a positive, so it's just the inverse of the yellow one, it's also going to equal a negative. So we have 5 times 3. Well, that's easy because they're both positive. So that's going to equal 15. Now we have positive 5 times negative 3. So we know that it equals 15. But if we look at our yellow, a negative times a positive is going to equal a negative. Or if we think about, it means that there's 5 groups of negative 3, it's going to be a negative. Then we have negative 5 times negative 3. So the opposite of 3 groups of negative 3, of 5 groups of negative 3. So that is going to equal, or if we look at our green up here, 3 times 5 is 15. A negative sign plus a negative sign is a positive sign. So the opposite of the 5 groups of negative 3. Hoofy. And then our last one, we have negative 5 times positive 3. So the opposite of 5 groups of 3 is going to be negative 15. Revisit this if it's confusing to you. So simplify the expression, negative 4 times negative 7. So 4 times 7 equals 28. If we have a negative and a negative, it means that it is the opposite of 4 groups of negative 7. So it's going to be a positive 28. Dividing integers is similar to multiplying integers in the respective, if you have 2 integers with the same sign, it's positive, and 2 integers with different signs, it's negative. Let's go ahead and write that down. So remembering that when we talked about multiplication, we talked about a product. With dividing integers, it's a quotient. And a quotient is another word for division. Oftentimes, this is the sign for division, but it also could be that you might see a number over top of a number. So 25 over 5 would mean you're saying 25 divided by 5. So that would equal 5. So here's a real life situation that you might want to figure out. A rock climber is at an elevation of 10,100 feet. 5 hours later, she is at 7,340 feet. Use the formula to find the climber's vertical speed. So it's going to look like this. The vertical speed equals the final elevation minus the initial elevation over the time. So I went ahead and filled that in. You get that equals negative 2,760 divided by 5. So we have a negative and a positive. So the quotient of 2 integers with different signs is negative. Our answer is going to be negative. So if you use a calculator to figure that out, it's going to equal a negative 552. Switching to checking your understanding. So a cave explorer descends at a rate of 6 miles per minute, or 6 meters per minute. Which expression cannot be used to find her depth after 4 minutes? So negative 6 plus negative 6 plus negative 6 plus negative 6, that should work because 6 meters per minute, 4 minutes, that should be a good one. Oops, I'm touching stuff over here. Negative 6 divided by 4. I'm not sure about that one. Let's look at the others. -6 times 4. Yeah, that's the same as A, so that's going to work. -6 minus 6 minus 6 minus 6. Oh yeah, that should work too. So therefore, the one that is not, cannot be used is going to be B. The product of two integers is 0. What do you know about the value of at least one of the integers? So if the answer, the product of two integers, equals 0, what times what equals 0? Any number times 0 equals 0. Therefore, we know at least one of the numbers is equal to 0. -7 times what equals -28? So we know that 7 times 4 is 28, but then we need to take a look. Is it going to be a negative? If this one's negative, then this one cannot, the 4 cannot be negative if the answer's negative, because a negative times a positive equals a negative, so it's a +4. -48 divided by a number equals 6. Ooh, a +6. So 6 times 8 is 48, so this is going to be an 8. And if it is a negative and we want it to be a positive, it has to have the same sign, so therefore it's going to be a negative. Some number divided by -4 equals -20. 4 times 5 equals 20. Oh, that's not going to work. I was confused there for a second. So if we think of this as some number, and if we multiply to get rid of this by -4, whoops, I pressed something there, -4, and if we multiply this side by -4, it crosses out. Multiply this side by -4 is going to equal a +80. N is going to equal +80. Negative times a negative is a positive. Find the product or the quotient. So -2 times -13, excuse that ding, we are going to be multiplying them together. A negative times a negative equals a positive. So that's going to equal +26. 22 divided by -11. That's going to equal 2. But this one is a positive, this one is a negative. Therefore, different signs, it's going to equal a negative. -4 times a +9. Only one of them is a negative, so the answer is going to be negative. 4 times 9 is 36. -25 divided by 5 is going to equal 5. Only one of them has a negative. It's going to be a -5. So go ahead and complete your homework on a separate note. It's going to be page 18 and 19, number 11 through 35 odd. Submit this assignment to the notes for chapter 1-3.